master technician. Hey guys, this is AJ Forsyth, and I have with me Ed Waldrop, who's our master technician, responsible for the vast majority of the systems and processes we use to repair devices. We're really excited to do teardowns today of the 6S Plus and the 6. This is going to be my personal phone, so if I do something bad to it, I'm going to have to eat my own dog food. But I'm excited to see what's inside because there's a lot of cool stuff we're going to be going over. But I'll let Ed tell you about the systems and processes we're doing.
All right, we're going to open the box and open the phone.
Very technical. I'm actually opening my new box right now, so we'll see.
I've been busy playing with mine.
And then we are actually going to move the camera down to give you guys some better angles, and then you don't have to look at us the entire time.
I'm going to go ahead and power mine down.
Ed couldn't wait after getting the device this morning and had to open up his box, but he didn't know we were actually going to be doing the teardown on his personal device either. So we'll see how that is. But nothing quite new.
Such a pretty pink.
Yeah, nothing quite new from here. And they have a cute little S right there, so we're always going to be able to tell the difference right off the bat if it's slate gray or is it space gray or slate?
Space gray.
Space gray. Yeah. Cool. So mine power's on. We will power it down, and then we'll dive right into it.
Now, watching some of the videos and stuff online, we already know that there's 4 strips of adhesive holding the bezel to the inside of the frame. But everything I've seen shows that it releases pretty easy. You can heat it. You can't. It's your call. But just like anything else here, we're going to go ahead and remove the Pentalobe screws at the base of the phone.
And for those that don't know, Ed and I were both previous iTechs, and so we have probably done, collectively a couple thousand repairs each?
Yeah.
Ed, is this a bigger microphone right here, or do we know what that is?
It's actually a bigger microphone. The 6S has twin microphones at the bottom of the screen, actually, for noise canceling.
Cool. And the rose gold iPhone actually has rose gold Pentalobe screws, but I'm going to have Ed open his first so he can show you the adhesive and how to open it. And for those that don't know, this is called an iCracked tool. We're friends with the guy who makes them, and the name actually comes from. So you'll see it right there. The name actually comes from, I was talking to him about why he named it that, and he's like, because when you open your phone, the sound it makes is clack, and so that's where the name came from. But Ed is trying to get the 4 adhesive strips.
Right. So as you can see here, there is in fact adhesive inside. Like I said, you don't need heat to open this, but you're going to need an iSesmo to assist you in breaking the adhesive if you do not heat it.
And we'll when we're selling these display assemblies in the coming days or weeks, we're definitely going to be looking at replacing the adhesive on the customer's phone when new screens are put on, just to maintain the integrity. One of the things that I like to do when opening these phones is actually keep a hand on the upper right where the cables actually are, so that you're never separating the cables or stressing them right when you're opening it. So I just keep like a light hold on that, and we'll see if I can actually break the adhesive without using an iSesmo. It doesn't look like it. We'll probably actually develop with the manufacturer iSesmos that have more leverage, so that we won't need heat or a iSesmo, but or iCracked with more leverage, so we won't need heat. But I will use the iSesmo. If you want to start taking yours apart, you're welcome to.
So this is the inside of the 6S Plus, and nice So it has, here's your Taptic engine. You've got battery cover, and it looks like the EMI shield has got 5 screws on the 6S Plus.
It's a huge battery.
Yeah.
Just as a side note, when we're going into with the iSesmo, you always have to be cognizant of the Touch ID cable. So as you're going in, just be careful that we're not severing it.
You always want to use the iSesmo just above the headphone jack.
So there's it coming up, and then I'm gonna gently pull it. Probably turn on my phone in the process.
The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking off the battery retaining plate, and 2 Phillips screws, and you want to make sure you keep track of your screws. Like always, every screw is slightly different, and putting the wrong screw in the wrong place can ruin a phone. And I'm going to use the nylon spudger. Come in here and disconnect the battery. And you notice I have an ESD strap on there, protecting myself. Okay, now that my battery's disconnected, I'm going to go up here and start taking off the screws for the EMI shield. I'm just going to lean my screen on the box here. As close as it can get.
And I, Ed, have an iPhone 6S part chart, which lets us know where to put the screws. So we're going to be putting that right there, and then I will be gently lifting up the screen. So the adhesive actually pulls off fairly easily. And it looks like reinstalling it is actually not going to be too difficult, which we're excited about. And then it also is not very sticky. It has a very plasticky feel. It's unlike the adhesives we use on iPod Touches. So we actually should be fine on being able to reinstall the adhesive. And then keep in mind when you're removing the display, it's generally good to just kind of wiggle it down a little bit to ungroove it on that top. And then we can open it up. Just something that I noticed is the adhesive actually is a mix of both white and black. It looks like the black is more for dust, and then the white, it looks like more of a gasket type seal, and then the white adhesive looks like it's actually for stickiness and for the seal. I am probably going to leave it there, but Ed can keep walking you through the 6 Plus.
So here we go on the 6 Plus. One of the things I notice here is we still have the home button extension cable, front-facing camera cable, and then they've taken the LCD and digitizer and combined it onto a single cable. So I'm going to disconnect my front camera here first, and the home button extension, and then the LCD digitizer.
And I am going to be disconnecting the battery of the iPhone 6S when I get a spudger.
So one of the things I notice here, unlike the 6, on the LCD digitizer flex cables, they've now reinforced the cable, so we won't have the issue with these like we did on the 6 and the 6 Plus, where the digitizer flex was extremely weak and could easily bend or bow on you, which is typically what happens when you get the boxes and lines across the screen, is because that very first cable had slightly gotten bent or bowed when you were connecting or disconnecting.
All right, Ed, I'm going to dive right in and actually start pulling out the Taptic engine. I want to see what it looks like, and I believe there's actually adhesive strips to remove the battery below it. And so I will put the screws on our part chart.
If you notice, the 6S has a much larger Taptic engine versus the 6S Plus, which is probably why my phone feels so weak when it vibrates.
Do you notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should actually do a study on like both frequency and size. We'll get a little seismometer for it.
So if anybody's curious how the Taptic engine works, basically it's an electric coil that has positive and negative charge on each side, that has a weight and a spring. So when the vibration's set, it just slightly moves side to side, versus the old vibration motors, which actually were like a half moon shape that would spun and throw it out of balance, which gave you that feel of vibration.
So, Ed, I'm going to remove the, it looks like there's 4 screws holding down my shield. And did you say there was 5 on yours?
Yeah, there's 5 on the Plus.
Which, personally, I prefer 4 screws over 5 for those that have taken apart an iPhone 6. And that middle screw is always one of the hardest ones to get, in my opinion. But also, there's one non-magnetic screw, and we magnetize our tools before we use it. There's one non-magnetic screw that is always a pain to get in, but which is probably why we use screw grab.
All right, but it looks here on the 6S that they use a standard standoff screw for the outer perimeter screw of the bracket, which means we don't have a problem with them being non-magnetic.
Ed, what's a standoff screw?
Standoff screw just means that it's raised up higher and that another screw inserts into it.
It's not angry?
No, it's not angry.
So just some quick things that we noticed on the 6S display is there's only 3 cables as opposed to the 4 on the iPhone 6, which is great news because it's always somewhat stressful when you're trying to gently push down the cable, but you can't get it to stick. A common mistake that is made is actually applying too much force to these cables, which can damage and bend the pins, which is sometimes responsible for both white lines and dead streaks on the digitizer when you're trying to use the touch sensor. But I will be popping the 3rd and final cable off right now.
And one other thing I noticed when I disconnected my battery is around the perimeter of it, they actually put a small strip of adhesive to act as a gasket right around the battery housing connector here.
Which is great. And then another thing that I'm noticing on the 6S is that there's actually a little bit of adhesive on the top also, which is going to be great. If you see how freely I'm moving this back and forth, the adhesive's holding it there. So you can, when you're working on it, be able to set it up without it falling easily. If you see, I can even almost pick it up, and the 3 cables are now removed. So that's good, but I'm just going to peel off the adhesive, and you can see that it's that white adhesive that was on the bottom. So there's white adhesive on the bottom and then on the top, and then there's actually a black, more gasket-like adhesive around there. So I will pull that off, and I will set my display assembly up there. Just looking at the home button and the Touch ID, it looks very similar to the iPhone 6, except it looks like they've reinforced the bracket that holds the Touch ID sensor to the Touch ID extension cable. So there's a cable that runs up here, which we'll get to in a second. But it looks very similar. It feels a lot more beefy. You can it's a good word.
And you can definitely tell there's a lot more weight on the display itself. I mean, this thing is actually surprisingly pretty heavy.
Another thing that we are noticing is the 6S display weighs as much as a 6 Plus display, despite it being 20 to 30% smaller.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start by removing the perimeter screws on the shield that is behind the LCD, but I believe we have to also remove the 2 screws on the front-facing camera and ear speaker, as well as proximity sensor, if I'm not mistaken.
So on the 6S Plus here, there's actually 3 screws holding the ear speaker front camera cable onto the bezel.
Ed, what is that blue strap on your hand?
Yeah, it's called an anti-static wrist cover. And so what this does is, if you build up any static electricity, especially if you're in areas that have high moisture in the air, this will dissipate the static electricity not only from my body but from the work mat, and using this very long cable down here going all the way to an outlet to ensure that we don't accidentally damage any of the electronic components.
And just for those that don't know why it's going to an outlet, is there's the 2-prong outlets, and then there's the 3-prong outlets. The 3rd prong, generally the round one, actually never has any current going through it. It's just a grounding wire that does exactly that, grounds what is going through there. So there's generally no voltage difference. It's just a pure grounding wire, which is what the anti-static mat is plugged into. I personally have never worn an anti-static wrist thing, but I think that could be a mistake if I damage my device because of that.
So looking at the front-facing camera cable and ear speaker, it's set up exactly like the 6 itself. So you have the 2 camera halves where it open, and you can remove the ear speaker itself with the foam and the ambient light and the proximity sensor directly underneath. So now that I've got my ear speaker out, I'm going to go down here and take off the retaining bracket for the home button.
And while Ed's doing that, I want to point out that as I'm removing the shield, that is this metal shield right here, it actually has adhesive holding on one of the critical wires, so it doesn't just pop off like the iPhone 6. We're actually going to have to move here, I'll see if I can get up there. So if you see right here, there's adhesive holding on a critical wire right there. So just be very careful when you're removing this, because you don't want to damage one of the wires. But I'm going to just peel it back, and then I can lift out is this a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, Ed?
Yes.
So 5 megapixel front-facing camera, very similar to the, 1.2 megapixel last one?
Yeah. And so the ear speaker bracket also counts as a thermal plate here for the 3D Force Touch engine controller, which is kind of interesting. So
it acts as a force plate?
A thermal plate.
Thermal plate.
The transferring of heat.
And one of the things that we're really excited about 3D Touch being integrated is, I think people with cracked screens, it's going to be a very tough experience for them, because you're going to be applying a lot more pressure to these cracked or shattered screens. And so there's going to be, my guess is, a bigger need for our services, because you're actually interacting with your display in a different way versus just staying on surface level only.
So down at the bottom, the home button connects to the extension cable exactly the same way as the iPhone 6. So you can see here, and the home button still has the rubber gasket with adhesive, which I'm sitting there, and it popped out much easier than the 6. And
let's see if Ed can.
And the entire home button comes off. The adhesive seems a lot weaker than it was on the 6.
My guess for that is, it's important to keep in mind that Apple still is having to do in-store replacements for these devices, and so they actually want to make it as easy as possible for their technicians as they're doing the repairs. I'm going to be removing the Touch ID wire. And Ed, why is it so important that I take my time doing this?
Well, the Touch ID has a microchip that actually marries it to its individual logic board. which has to do with security, so that the fingerprint is actually scanned into this little IC, and it's not an actual fingerprint that's scanned. It's an algorithm for a mathematical equation that marries them. So if that's ever damaged, you've pretty much rendered the phone useless.
Hold on. I still don't use Touch ID. I'm still a long passcode type of person.
Right. But in the software side, if it cannot detect the IC for the home button, it will brick the phone. It'll give you what's called an error 53 and not allow the phone to fully restore and function again.
So are you saying I should take my time doing this?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to give it a little pressure. Occasionally, if this is being difficult, you can always. I personally love to add heat, and heat is your friend when removing adhesive versus buying a whole new phone. So I didn't need any heat this time, but I can. You see that I use the spudger on the point where it is. Where the cable looks strongest, and then I can pull it off. And how awesome of Apple to even make a more rose, is it rose gold?
Yeah, so it's more of a rocher color.
So
to me, it's pink.
One of the interesting things is you can see a manufacturing artifact where it looks more, is it stainless?
Yeah, these are, they're anodized stainless steel.
So you can see that it is actually more rose gold right here, but at the edge of it, it's just regular silver, which is interesting.
Now the thermal plate here on the 6S Plus has 3 screws down the left and the right, but it also has an additional screw at the 90-degree angle here at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these 7 screws.
Ed, I would not have even seen that screw if you didn't do it first.
So I take it yours has it too.
Mine does. So what Ed's talking about is, we'll see if we can see it right here. There's a additional screw that we haven't seen before right there on the side that we're going to have to go in from this angle to unscrew to remove the thermal plate. Ed, we should make a little camera robot that roves around the mat. All right, so while Ed's catching up, I'm going to be removing the plate, so I'm just going to use, there's no adhesive under it, and this is actually going to be the first time I have seen what looks like a new type of backing for 3D Touch, and I'm making sure I have all the screws done.
The thermal plate literally just falls right off. It's not held in with anything special whatsoever.
Ed, speak for yourself there.
Well, okay, for the 6S Plus, but it looks like you have a little bit of adhesive up there on your front camera cable.
So what I'm doing right now is looking back here and seeing there's a wire that looks like it's adhered to on there that I'm going to apply pressure to.
See right here, the tape?
Yep. All right, I'm going to work on that way. Ed makes it look easy.
So I've got my thermal plate off here, so now I have just the front camera and the prox and ambient light. So I'm going to get there and pop these puppies out. There we go. And just like the 6 and the 6 Plus, the microphone is held in with just a little bit of adhesive. It's actually a lot weaker than the current generation, which means less issues of damaging that. And so that's it.
And if you can see the pattern on the plate after being removed, you can see the dots. My guess is those are probably part of 3D Touch for sensing presses.
Well, I think it's more for heat spread and for differences in the capacitive touch when you're touching it. But I mean, pretty much that the home button extension cable is now actually part of the display assembly. So we don't have to worry about damaging that cable anymore, as it's going to be part of the assembly itself. And the ear speaker boot and procs and look the same, but I don't know if you can see this, but the front-facing camera cable is now, the bracket for the front-facing camera is got a flat down at the bottom instead of being a full circle.
So one of the things that I noticed on my 6S display is that there's adhesive holding the...
Yeah, that's crazy. Look at all that adhesive.
So there's adhesive, if you see right here, I know it's upside down, I'll try to turn it right side up. So it looks like there's adhesive right here and right here holding the
the thermal plate.
The thermal plate there.
Force touch.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see if I can peel it off and hope that it's not a wire that I'm peeling off. I'm going to try peeling a little bit off on this side. And can I use your spudger, Ed? And then if you see right here, there's some more adhesive right there. And spudger actually may not be sharp enough for it. Maybe worth hitting it with either hitting it with some heat or a Isesimo, but I don't want to keep you guys waiting, so I will try to move fast. And then I have removed that. Let's see if we can still see this.
Now let's remove your ear speaker bracket.
Hold on. Oh, that was okay.
Yep, just held in with a little bit of adhesive.
So we see that I'm going to be trying to peel this off right there, and then I peeled off the adhesive on the left side and the right side of the thermal plate. And then we can, if we look up a little bit more closely, we can see where that adhesive was. And this is actually part under the cable. This part's under the thermal plate, and this is above it.
So what you're seeing here on this end, this like a yellow strip here, right there, this is actually two cables that are married together, and it's most likely the same type of conductive adhesive they used in the iPad 2 cellular models, which is kind of interesting. And then over here is where your backlight cable runs around and is soldered down and then covered with a piece of adhesive.
So, Ed, is it possible to do a display assembly switch with leaving the proximity sensor and ear speaker in on this?
Yeah, actually it looks like you can, because you can slide it right up underneath.
So that's if we're going to verify it, but if that's true, we will not have to be aligning. Oh no, we still have to transfer these to a new display.
Oh yeah, that's very true. Yeah, so they do have to come off.
So I'm going to be removing the front-facing camera. It looks like Ed already did.
Yep, so you only have your ambient light sensor and proximity sensor left there.
Ed, what's the difference between the two?
So the proximity is sort of like a radar system that talks with the ambient light. So ambient light just means it detects the amount of light entering the eyelet. As you move the phone closer to your ear, the light will get dimmer, as well as the proximity sending the signal that will come back to it faster. And when it achieves a certain goal, then it shuts off the display and shuts off touch.
So I'm going to be removing the microphone, which is always a joy to remove. And so I'm going to be removing the microphone right now, which I'm going to be gently using my spudger. I think.
Yeah, it's the last thing you want to do is ruin your selfie microphone.
I hate talking on the phone, so I wouldn't probably mind that much because that's a good excuse. And so we have the cable right here that has a integrated microphone, proximity sensor, ambient light sensor, and then a whopping 5 megapixel camera right here, where I remember when I was younger buying a 3.3 megapixel camera, and it was the size of a brick. So it's crazy that this is now a 5 megapixel camera.
4 AAA batteries, and it lasted about 15 to 20 photos.
With a 4 megabyte memory card that probably cost more than this entire wire assembly. But so I'll get back to Ed. But before I do, I think what we're most excited about is, Ed, do you want to explain what this is?
So this is the controller for what they call 3D touch. Now, I know how Apple markets this, where people seem to think that the glass actually flexes, but the way it functions, there's a thin membrane down in between these plates here that senses a light touch or a heavy touch by the amount of the contact the skin's making. So when you do a light touch, you'll have a small dot, and the harder you press, of course, your fingerprint will become larger on the surface, and that tells it to switch into a different mode.
And then it looks like each one of these displays is serialized with a laser engraver, which is normal.
And mine, the laser engravement is down here at the bottom.
Cool. All right. So if we're doing screen replacements, this is actually the part that we would send back to recycle it, which it's still quite a hefty part. And one of my favorite things when I was in iTech was doing repairs and then knowing that I could get even more value for each repair by sending my screens back or selling them back. So keep in mind that these will have, starting out, probably, $40 to $50 in value? Yeah. Or do we want to do a full teardown?
That's your call. I mean, now, I'll just go over a few things on here. So if you notice here, and you probably can't see it too well on here on the 6S Plus, but it looks like one of the antennas, it could be an interconnect cable or maybe a service, but it actually connects all the way up here next to the front camera, runs down, goes under the logic board, and then all the way down here to the charging port. And then you have a smaller antenna coming up right here below the battery, which most likely this is your service antenna, and this is going to be your GPS antenna up here. But compared to the 6 Plus, I see a lot of the same. You have the same antenna system up here with the Wi-Fi cable underneath the logic board. But what they've done, instead of separating the volume control and the power, is they've combined them to a single cable connected up here now. Then you've got...
Ed, personally, when I was doing power button and volume button replacements, it is, in my opinion, one of the most frustrating repairs.
Yes. I fully agree with you there. Then looking over here, we have the charging port flexed, loudspeaker, which has a heavy-duty magnet. Now, I was listening to my phone earlier today, and I was actually surprised that they've improved the audio coming out of this little speaker. I really thought that it was coming out of the monitor on my desk, but it was my phone.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Cool. I'm just checking it out, figuring out how I would break it if I were to.
But even with just the body of the frame, I mean, you can really feel the difference in the weight. Now, those there, you've got to peel back, and there's strips of adhesive running all the way up that you have to pull out.
Okay. So
one thing you never want to do is dig around these batteries with anything metal. I've twice now seen them catch fire in front of my face.
So if you saw me digging with metal earlier, that was a mistake. But you can see I'm pulling out one of the adhesive strips on the left, which this is actually a very cool feature about these batteries. For those that remember the iPhone 4 and iPhone 5 series, it was actually permanent adhesive without the strips. Wasn't it?
No, it was pull tabs, so the battery was actually floating in there versus being fully secured. Now you notice the strips on the 6S here is coming out far easier than they did on the 6 and the 5S and 5C, which is phenomenal. Usually you pull it about an inch or two and the dang thing breaks.
So I'm going to put the battery aside, and then if you look, there's actually not a single residue of adhesive from the back. So this is going to be actually a very user serviceable part, which is awesome. And then the phone's probably lost about half its weight. I wish I could do that quickly. And one of the things that looks seemingly new here is this Apple logo getting special treatment coming through on the back. Have we seen? Was that?
Yeah,
like
they
that?
did that in the 6 also.
I'm out of it. I'm losing it. We can see the very thin wires for the volume button, mute button, all running to one location that it looks like. Is it running under?
Your power buttons come in here, and then it connects right up to the logic board right up here.
And then, so we have our SIM card, which looks like standard AT&T. And then I will start removing the screws to see if we can get the logic board up.
If you look here, they've changed the standoff screw here to a hex style, which means that we're going to need a special tool to actually remove the logic board here.
We're right there.
Yeah.
Great. Ed, are you sure we're going to need a special tool?
Well, I'll just say we'll need another tool, because most likely it's a standard socket that should fit that, or a driver, I should say.
I'm going to try it just by hand and see if I make any progress.
But on the 6S Plus, they kept the standard standoffs, which you can remove with flathead screwdrivers.
Ed, I'm going to run and see if we have any needle nose, and I can see if I can get that.
Alrighty. Alright.
You can start disassembling one if you want.
Bring back a beer.
It is after 5 on the East Coast.
So, looking here at the phone, let's go ahead and disconnect the charging port. It's held on with a really fair amount of adhesive. Got the antenna located here. And it looks like they've changed the way the SIM card eject mechanism goes. Usually it's a simple rocker, and this one is an actual push button style. Where's my tool bag? Yep. I'm seeing several screws coming across. Got another antenna up here. And we have the rear camera. And it looks like it's got the same retaining plate that the 6 and 6 Plus has. Yep, just a simple retaining bracket. And then let's pop out this new 12 megapixel rear camera. And noticeably, this is a much smaller camera compared to the 6S Plus, as you can see here, and it's probably about 5 millimeters thinner.
All right, Ed, I'm going to see if I can remove this screw.
Now, looking internally, just like before the 6 and the 6 Plus, the only water indicator is a little oval strip on the logic board itself. It's, unlike the 5 series, which also had one when you ejected the SIM card tray. camera. Yeah, that's a big difference in the size of the rear cameras here.
Ed, do you have a micro needle nose?
I do not think so.
I'm gonna go check some more.
Okay, now that he's gone, I'll go ahead and rip some more of his phone apart. Okay, so let's see what we got going on here. Alright, we got a logic board screw. And we've got up here, oh, we got another inductor coil. So, I don't know if many people understand how the signaling works in the frame, and see how you have the separators on the back, and then around all these corners here you have what's called an inductive coil, which literally transfers signal. When you grip it, it'll transfer it to the other edge of the frame, so that you keep the same intensity of antenna strength.
Ed, I'm not going to do this on camera.
I'm closing my eyes. You guys do not want to see what he's doing. So essentially, these displays are going to go back together the same way previous versions, the 6s have gone. And very definitively, and I'll say this now, is the cable does go underneath the thermal plate. I know we had a lot of discussion on the 6, because the original release version, some phones had it on top, some had bottom, but as the generation progressed, they were all on top.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to be removing that screw that way, but I will start reassembling the antennas that Ed so kindly took off my phone. For those that have done antenna replacements before, you know that it can be one of the most frustrating experiences if you get the connector piece bent by applying too much pressure while trying to put them on. So I'm going to be trying to gently put that on, or else I probably won't. What do you think? Do we know if this is Wi-Fi or?
No, that one is definitely going to be service. I'm assuming the one that's going up toward the top is going to be for GPS.
You were kind enough to leave that on for me.
Yeah, it's because you walked in here before I could get it disconnected.
So I am trying to be gentle with this. Is that what you use?
Yeah. I use the tweezers to guide it, and then the nylon spudger to push it down.
Do you want to show us how to do it?
So, the easy way to do this is grab the base of the antenna, get it lined up there.
Did you get it?
No. Well, these ones are small and tricky.
Guess this means I'll be on Wi-Fi only.
No, you don't need a phone.
Do you think these are hand installed at the factory?
No, they're done by machine.
Ed, you're a machine. This is a rare glimpse of the surgeon at work.
It's a biscuit when you got to take your glasses off.
For those that don't know, Ed is probably one of the most talented. Is solderist a word?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
When Ed first joined us, I asked him how many pounds of solder he's used. How many pounds of solder do you think you've used in your life?
That's a lot to say because you usually have to buy it by the pound. So I've probably gone in the last 30 years of doing all kinds of soldering, I've probably gone about a good 6 or 7 pounds, which is, you'd think is not a lot, but you're talking about, you're using a couple of inches at a time, and you're talking about thousands of feet of solder.
That is crazy. You think over a mile?
I'd say well over a mile.
That is awesome. All right, so I'm going to be reassembling my phone.
Well, you got some fancy components to put in.
Oh
too.
my gosh, I don't even know where these came from. So Ed's going to be reassembling my phone.
So that's the rear-facing camera, which sits inside this socket right here.
And for those that want to see the sapphire lens, looks about the same size as the last one, correct?
Yes.
And then it looks like we still have that dual tone LED flash.
And the rear microphone.
And this is a beautiful little camera.
Yeah.
So we're going to drop the camera in there. If you see it, it is the fourth cable on the 3 digitizer LCD front-facing camera, proximity sensor, light sensor, and microphone, and Touch ID, all going over 3 cables. If we thought my pictures were not going to be good because of what I did to the front-facing camera. There it is.
It's like coming midway into a puzzle.
Now, Ed, it's are these foam separators on the 3 connectors? Is that new with this model?
What's that now?
You see, they put foam around each connector.
Yeah. Well, the previous ones was one just big cover, and then underneath was a protective epoxy. But yeah, it looks like they went to the same style they had on the original 5, but these are a lot thicker and with the inductor coil though.
The inductor coil looks like it parked on my hand.
So that goes underneath.
Ed, what is an inductor coil for those that don't know?
Oh, I explained it when you're out of the room.
Never mind then. And where do we put it?
It goes right down over here.
Okay. Here, I'll let Ed show how it's reinstalled.
Make this not fun.
How do you like your Apple Watch?
It's a watch.
That's good.
Yeah. I just got the OS 2 update put on it, so I haven't had a chance to really play with it very much.
So, Ed, is the inductor coil necessary for use?
Yeah, it really is. If you want signal. Okay, so it's going to go right there. See, and it just slides right down in there. But this guy is not playing nice.
Cool. And we do appreciate you guys joining us today here. We're not finished yet, but I was just told that we passed 100 viewers watching this live, which is crazy. And then we'll probably edit it up a little bit and put it online when we're done. But as always, we're going to be publishing and distributing these part charts. One of the cool things about them is here we'll zoom out a little bit. So one of the great things about these part charts is we have custom-made magnetic mats that they sit on. And the great thing about these mats are your screws the magnetism will flow through the part chart, and then you will be able to make sure your screws stay in place. And then we're also going to be doing a series of professional replacement videos on this. So this is just kind of less than 6 hours after the phone's released. We are doing a teardown just because we're as excited, if not more, to get inside of this as you guys, I'm sure, will be.
So if you see here, it sits there, and then this one folds back, and then this cover comes over. There we go.
So I'm going to be starting the reassembly of the front-facing camera and the sensors as well as microphone. This is actually one of the times that you need to take your time and be extremely diligent about this. It's always frustrating when people, when I've done replacements and I didn't put the microphone aligned well. I think probably the most frustrating is when someone's proximity sensor doesn't work because you keep muting yourself on phone calls. I'm going to be seating the microphone right now. Good thing is it has a little tab that drops down for you to align it. We'll see if you can see in here. So there's like a little tab, white tab that presses through the microphone to hold the cable. And then we will start reassembling this. The proximity sensor and light sensor is actually pretty easy to fit in because it just pops right into a little looks like it feels like a little almost canal built for it. And I don't know if you heard it, but it actually there was a physical like little clicking sound saying in it, and it actually feels pretty sturdy in there. One of the things I noticed is it looks like the same ear speaker parts were used for both models, which isn't surprising. Which is just a little high-powered magnetic speaker, so I'm going to put that in. It is important to note that there are 4 contact coil springs right here, and these need to be in contact with the 4 contact points on the wire. So if the ear speaker doesn't work, it's most likely the 4 contact coils are not aligned properly on that wire. So just take your time when you're doing that.
And don't over tighten the ear speaker bracket, because as many of you have found out, when you get that too tight, it actually causes the ear speaker to not function.
I also did not know that as well. So I'm going to be feeding this. I know it's probably odd seeing a repair upside down. We'll try to film the next one right side up. I'm putting this on, and then you can see the 4 contact points right there, and here's the wire. So I'm going to just use my thumb to gently hold that in there while I pop in the front-facing camera. So if you see, I'm just gently holding in. There's also 2 pins on this wire, 1 pin right here and 1 pin right there, which helps you make sure that the ear speaker's aligned. And then I'm going to, just while applying pressure, I'm going to then put on the bracket that looks like it has a little gasket on it. So grab it from over here. Here's the ear speaker bracket, and you can see the little gasket. I'll get right there. So I'm going to try to leave that intact and put it on. And Ed, can I put on all of this stuff before I put the thermal plate back on?
Yeah, actually you can.
So we're
because none of this screws into the thermal plate. Unlike the 6 and the 6 Plus, it did require it.
So I put this, I put the plate on right there, and I haven't screwed it in yet. But you can actually, if it's not set up correctly, you'll feel it compressing outwards on one side more than the other. It probably means one of the sensors is not actually in its canal correctly. So we are going to just make sure it's a snug fit. Another thing is you can still see I don't know if you guys can see this, but you can still see the coil springs right there, and they're not fully compressed, which is good. But they're everything feels like it's in line. I'm going to just keep pressure on there. One of the things I like to do is to flip it over before I screw it on and just make sure that front-facing camera is aligned right there. It looks like it is, so Ed will be able to use selfie mode without restriction. Ed, I love our company so much.
I hear ya. I mean, where else can I work tearing shit apart all day?
And saving people who inadvertently tore stuff apart.
Now, just like the 6 series, the ear speaker also has these pins which protrude through the ear speaker retaining bracket to ensure that it's also aligned correctly.
Ed, did you just swear on camera a couple of minutes ago?
Oh, no, I said shoot.
Well, this video will now have to be rated
PG-17
and
13.
PG-13. A nice little trick to use if your screws are not magnetically strong enough to your screwdrivers is actually you can take any fridge magnet and rub the fridge magnet back and forth on your tools and it will remagnetize them much stronger. So that is AJ's tip of the day. A side tip is when we were buying tens of thousands of tools years ago to sell them, both to our iTechs and the general public, some of the tools would come out non-magnetized. So I built a way too big of an electromagnet in an attempt to be able to walk through the fulfillment center shelves and magnetize all the tools around it at once. And it only kind of worked and was probably more dangerous than anything else. So I had to put a stop to that and just magnetize them individually at point of manufacture.
So overall, I'm going to have to say that as far as the screen goes, transferring components, it's going to be far easier than the 6 and the 6 Plus.
You think so?
Yeah, because you don't have to deal with that home button extension cable. And that's the biggest pain in the 6 and 6 Plus. And what we hear most people are damaging is that cable. And since they're built into these screens, that's definitely going to make this repair easier.
You know, I just want to reiterate that there is another screw that wasn't on the last 6 series. There's another screw that goes up and down. That one's probably going to catch a lot of you, I guess, guys by surprise because you're going to try to pull it off and it's going to feel like it's caught. So just be cognizant of that because I know it'd be easy for me to forget that. Ed, do you prefer Phillips or flathead?
Phillips.
Really?
Yeah, they don't slip off as much. You see the screen went on pretty relatively easy. I got those nice double snaps. Unlike a lot of times with the 6, especially on that first cable that you connect, where you had to fight to get it aligned correctly, get it seated. The 6S Plus here, it actually just went right in. It's self-aligned because you can't force it down. Well, you could. You could brute force it. But it definitely went on a lot easier than fighting the digitizer on the 6 series.
And as a note, I just took the thermal plate off again because it didn't feel like it was sitting flush. And the reason it wasn't is the adhesive that held this wire, this adhesive right here, was crumping it up a little bit. That will actually probably affect performance. So you're actually going to want to peel back both of these adhesives because it was wedged under it and I had just forgotten about that. So you're going to want to peel those back and then slide in the plate like that. Hold on, so the plate is in and sliding up. So slide in the plate like that, and then that top adhesive can go down right there. I'm going to try to smooth it out. If you see how it's actually going back on pretty well, which is good that we're most likely not going to have to replace that. So that's just a heads up to make sure that adhesive, if the thermal plate doesn't feel like it's fitting flush, that could be one of the reasons. So that's AJ's second tip of the day, which he learned by mistake.
And just like with anything else, again, I cannot reiterate how important it is to keep track of your screws. Just like previous versions, that if you insert the wrong screw into the EMI shield, you're going to irreparably damage the device you're working on.
Really?
Yeah. So when you put a 4 or 5 let's say a 2 millimeter screw in a hole that only takes less than a millimeter, it tends to put holes through the logic board.
Another tip that is, if you drop some screws, which we'll face it happens occasionally, just make sure that it hit the ground and is not inside the phone when you're reassembling it. There's been some horror stories where people will leave a loose screw inside the phone, and it can actually cause not only damage to the phone, but it can rupture the battery and cause the battery to catch on fire. So if you drop screws, it's always good to just make sure that you can shake it a little bit.
Your flap's not underneath the thermal plate.
Nah, we'll wing it. Ed, something tells me I'm going to be taking this phone apart.
Yeah. Well, and also if you look at the top of the 6S here, you're going to see much more predominant tabs that slide into the phone. And that has to do a lot with the fact that Apple has beefed up the thickness, especially around the outer perimeter of the bezel. So these are going to be nice and make it very much easier to get it underneath that frame there and actually hold it. There we go.
Now, Ed, did you notice that on the bracket? Here, we'll move back to my phone. Did you notice that on the bracket there's actually a little spring?
Grounding tab.
Why do you think that would be necessary? You want to explain that?
That's because of the amount of static electricity that can build up from the display. It's transferred through the thermal plate to this plate, and then it touches right down in this area here behind the lightning port. So it's also a effective means of them transferring static electricity as well. You're also going to notice that on the 6S series that the Pentalobe screws are color-coded to the frame. So they're a matching anodized color.
So it looks like I have my frame reassembled. This is supposed to go under the plate, but I want to see performance if we do not do that. And then I'm also probably going to be doing another teardown on this phone in the next couple of days. So I can fix it then. But to keep the video short.
Oh, you mean when I tear it down to make the PDF?
when Ed gets to almost brick my device.
I tell you, overall, though, I am extremely happy with the performance of the 6S as far as processing power. It definitely boots up a couple of seconds faster than the 6 series and functions.
Now, Ed, do we have adhesive for the batteries?
Actually, we do. It's over in my office.
You want to get that?
I'm going to go grab it.
Cool. So I'm going to be putting on the display while Ed is grabbing the adhesive. It's actually probably better to do it from this angle. And I'm going to use the iPhone box as a backstop for the display just to hold it up while I show you guys how to reconnect these 3 wires. So we are going to be doing, you generally do the bottom one first and then you move your way up so that you see this is the bottom one, here's the middle one, and then here's the top one. So I'm going to turn it around real fast, or turn it sideways, and see. You never want to force it. You just want to gently hover it over there until it feels like it's going to click in. And then if you listen closely, you can actually sometimes feel a nice little pop, which is the best sound in the world, versus applying too much pressure and bending some of these pins. So I'm going to be I generally, if you see how I'm moving it around to very lightly feel where it's going to fit in, and then you can apply pressure and it should just pop right in. So if you heard that little pop again, then this one's actually going to be, I think, easier than most because it lines up and it actually fits really snug. So we did these 3 wires. Make sure there's not any stress on these wires right here. And then we can wait for Ed to come back in the next 3 seconds with adhesive. But in the meantime, I'm going to be putting the 4-screw plate back on over these wires. This just keeps a secure connection and prevents them from popping loose.
No, I only have the 6 plus. So we'll just peel a strip off and lay it under your battery.
You want to start doing that? Oh, I'll do it. So the biggest screw is on the top right screw right there. And so I generally do I generally do this one in not super tight for the first one because you still want to be able to move this around to align this little plate up on the 4 holes, and then I will grab the opposite side of the screw, and I will drop it in there. You want to be careful right here because this is actually screwing into the
right into
the hex screw.
Yeah, that hex screw.
You have no idea how close I was to probably bricking my phone, getting that screwed up.
Well, it's a good thing Apple has a good forgiveness policy.
So Ed, how do you like 3D Touch? Is it revolutionary?
It's it's a lot of how the watch works, but one thing I really like is being able to use shortcuts, like going to the camera there, and it gives you a selection where I can take a selfie, and yes, Apple actually put take selfie, and then record video, record slow-mo, and take photo. So if I take a selfie.
By the way, raise your hand if you want Ed to take a selfie. I do.
There you go. Look at that nice, crisp 5-megapixel camera photo there. Oh, that's where my scissors went.
Yeah, we have way too few scissors in the office. The black wraps around, right?
Yeah.
Like that?
Yep.
So if you're doing a battery replacement, you see that I put 2 new adhesive strips on, and there's actually 2 little black tabs right there that are going to wrap around so that the next person, if we're doing another battery replacement, can easily peel this off, but it's holding the battery back in place, which is great that Ed happened to have these 10 feet away.
Yeah, so peel the pink layer off. There, oh, okay, and fold it over like that.
So fold it over, and then you see the adhesive actually reapplies to the battery right there. Just give it a little love. And then we can actually, when you peel this off, this is exposing the adhesive for the inside of the phone. So one of the things that I generally do is I try to just loosely line up where the wire is going to be. And in this case, I'm actually going to plug in the battery. And then I still haven't installed the battery yet, but I'm just going to let it drop down a little bit so it's not putting too much stress on any of the cables. And you see it fits like a glove. Like a glove. And then there's
not
the 2.
O.J. Simpson's glove.
It didn't fit, Ed. I do think it's ironic that Apple put 2 beta fish as a background where historically beta fish kill each other. So maybe that was their sign of saying it's Apple and Samsung getting along together.
Yeah. But you got to admit, those are gorgeous artwork they've done on these boxes.
So I'm going to put the remaining 2 screws, 4 if you include Pentalobe, but 2 for the battery. I'll be putting them on right here. And So there's a good example of just keeping that first screw you put in loose and just remember to tighten it. Grab your second screw. Screw it in, and we'll tighten this one.
Now, one thing I really love about the frames here of the 6S is the 7000 series aluminum. Looking across a lot of the videos where people, especially in Australia, who got this yesterday, were trying to bend these, and watching the amount of pressure that they had to apply to even get these frames to bend. So I think this, one good thing about the 6S series is we're not going to have much of an issue when it comes to frame damage. Even some of the drop tests.
Well, hold on, Ed. Let's take a moment of silence for not having an issue with frame damage. Much of an issue. All right, it is past. That is good. So one of the things that I wanted to show you guys before we close up, I'm going to drop my SIM card back in there. One of the things that is just a neat little trick is to always make sure that when you're putting your screen back in, it should wedge in, like it should wedge in almost flush right here, even though we still have the clamshell design. So we're going to put that there. And then before I actually seal it up, I want to turn it on. So we're going to wait for the moment of truth. But I want to turn it on and just run some preliminary tests before it's all sealed up. So we have the white Apple logo. Looks like it's booting up, which is the dream. And then I'll see it. Just make sure that there's no pixel damage. Make sure that it looks like it's booting as expected. This phone's only ever been turned on once for about 30 seconds before being taken apart. We're going to check that the digitizer works. That's great. We'll actually check the home button, which should take us back. Yep. So you can actually check the home button, cancel, start over. It's search. I don't think I've activated cellular on this one yet because I'm still using my other one. But you can see it's searching, which is better than it being completely grayed out. You know, I'm going to be happy popping this one back in. It feels like it's working relatively fine. And then,
and unlike last year, my Touch ID still works.
And then I'm just checking the external buttons, making sure that everything works. See that Taptic engine works. So Taptic engine's working well. I set my phone in some other language.
Now feel the differences between the vibration on the two phones when you flip that mute.
Ed, I don't. I bet we can do a blind test with you and you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah, I don't know. It just feels weak.
It could be because you've been working out.
Huh. Aubrey.
For those that don't know, Aubrey is one of our most awesomest iTechs. But so that is the unofficial,
somewhat teardown, and you know, of course, here in the wrong screw. In the next couple weeks, we'll be building all the guides for the replacement parts. So far, I do have the 6S power button flex cable, and I have the 6S charging ports in, so I can at least get started on those. And here shortly, we should be receiving our first shipment of screens.
Yep. And hopefully shortly I can get a haircut. I wasn't expecting to be on camera. But hey, we actually really appreciate everyone, both for tuning in, but also being in iTech and both believing in the company and supporting us. Everything we do is for our iTech network. And one of our goals this year in particular is to how can we build better tools to allow you guys to work more efficiently, service more customers, and just generally improve everyone's businesses. So thank you for, I guess, sticking through the good and the bad times with us. I know for those that have been with us quite a long time, you've seen crazy changes. It's insane. Thank you, Ed. Ed was actually asking for trash. But it's insane that where we've come as a company, and I truly believe we're just getting started. So we appreciate everyone's support and positivity. But we're excited that this is going to be, the cool thing is we're going to do more iPhone 6S and 6S Plus repairs than all other repairs we've ever done combined, given both the momentum of Apple selling, but also the momentum of our company. So it's great that we get to show you guys this on day one, and it looks very user serviceable. So that's great news for us. But Ed and I are out now.
Have a good day, everybody. See you on Yammer World.